Alright, chat, y'all there? Y'all ready? Y'all there? Alright. Everyone doing fine? Yeah, sadly, Toronto didn't do so well against Detroit last time they met. And sorry I'm coming into the game a little late. I was having some technical difficulties. Here's Detroit in their zone. Or in Toronto's zone. Toronto gets it back. Here's Toronto coming through center and dumps it into Detroit zone, and that is icing. Yeah, sorry I'm a little late, chat, but yeah, I was doing a 5K race, so that's why I was late, and I was just getting back and ready from that. So I feel really bad for being late. Um, Alright. Yeah. Toronto lost 3-1 to Detroit last time they met here in the preseason. Yeah, Toronto had a 1-goal lead, but then they couldn't hang on like they usually do as the Leafs. They get the lead and then they can't really hold on. But that's alright. There's this game, and then, well, at least these games don't really count. So, there's that. So, yeah. And what happened to the camera here? That's weird. What happened here? Uh-oh. Alright, there we go. There we go. Here's a face-off. In Toronto, here it comes, and Robertson got a shot on goal there. Couldn't put it in the net, though. Yeah, that face-off was won by Detroit, and then Robertson took that puck away and then got a good shot on goal. Sadly, couldn't put it in the back of the net, though. Yeah, Robertson trying to find his place in the lineup. Face-off won by Detroit. Up the center before Riley takes it away. Tried to get it through center, but Detroit takes it away and sends it into Toronto's territory. Here's Toronto with a stretch pass. Here's Toronto through center, offsides. The call by the refs. It's good to be back for hockey. It is great to be back for hockey as the puck was sent into Toronto zone before it comes out into the neutral ice. Here comes Detroit, centered in front, and they score! Detroit on the board first. 1-0. There we go. Face-off one here by Detroit. And sent into Toronto zone. And then Toronto sends it down the ice for icing. Just a good play by Detroit to get out in front 1-0. Toronto on Hildebee's in net for Toronto. Face off one by Detroit, but Toronto gets it. Here comes Toronto through center. Sent around the boards. Here comes Detroit, who gets the puck behind their net, coming out through center now. Here comes Detroit into Toronto zone with a shot sent wide. Here comes Detroit now with the puck again, near the goal line. And now sends it behind the net. Here comes Detroit. Tried to center it. Couldn't get a shot off, and another shot, I believe, blocked. Here's a pass to not Kane. Thought it was Kane there. And then sends it around the boards. Here's a shot, saved by Dennis Hildeby. What a start to the game so far. Can't wait to see where it goes here. Hopefully Toronto can get a win today, of course, because repping the Leafs jersey here. So, of course, I believe Toronto should win. I do have a projected Leafs lineup, but I forgot to bring that with me, as Detroit sends it deep inside Toronto zone. And near the blue line now, with a shot. What a save on Kane by Dennis Hildeby. Detroit gets it back. Another shot, saved by Hildebeest. Here comes Toronto through center. Robertson fighting for the puck. Centered in front. Oh, that was a great chance, but couldn't get it in the back of the net. Robertson with a shot. Saved by... sorry, I don't know my players, but I think Talbot's in net for Detroit. I know. I'm sorry, I do not know who's on the team for Detroit. My hockey knowledge is not up to date. Is Toronto after one face-off, got turned over to Detroit. And Detroit gets it out of center before Toronto gets it back in. Here's Cowan getting it behind the net. Here's Cowan again. It tried to center it in front. Couldn't get that. And then whistle blown as a penalty coming up to Toronto. No, it's Toronto, I'm sorry. For hooking. Yeah, that looks like a clear hook. Hooking on Detroit, number 53. Power play time for Toronto. Couldn't convert on their last power play. And Detroit clears after one face-off. Hildeby out to play that. Here comes Toronto through center. Here's Toronto. And they send it out of the zone. That's alright, though. Here comes Toronto through center. Robertson. Here's Cowan now. Cowan near the blue line, and he couldn't control the puck as that goes out to center ice. Cowan keeps it in. Battle along the boards for the puck. Detroit gets the puck. Couldn't clear it. Here's Toronto. Can't see who, though. Nylander apparently had the puck. In a shot. Scramble in front. Detroit clears the puck with 45 seconds left to go in the power play. Hildeby comes out to play it. Here comes Toronto. Through center. Sends it into Detroit's zone. And that goes out of play. Yeah, I feel bad not being here on time, chat. I was just racing, and then, yeah. Here comes the face-off at center ice, won by Toronto. Less than 30 seconds left to go into power play. Here comes OEL, sends it in. Or, no, Nylander shot that in, sorry. Puck comes behind the net again. Behind the net. Detroit gets the puck out of the zone here. And that's the end of the penalty as Toronto takes it back behind their own net. 4:14 left to go in the period. Here comes Toronto. Kampf. Shot. Couldn't get in, and a score! Shaw scored for Toronto. And the game is tied. What a goal by Shaw. I think it was off one of the Red Wings sticks. And then Shaw put it away. Here comes the face-off at center ice. What a goal by Shaw. Detroit won the face-off here, but Toronto gets it back. But Detroit sends it back into Toronto's zone. Here's Detroit in a shot, saved by Hildeby. Here's a cross-ice pass. Tried to center it. Couldn't get a stick on it. Here's Detroit coming down. A shot. blocked in front. Detroit sends it behind the net. Here comes Toronto, and Benoit in scrum forms along the boards. I assume Benoit's going to get a penalty. Yeah, for interference, and then I don't know. I don't even know what to call that penalty, but we'll go to commercial break, and Toronto is tied with Detroit at 1. Welcome in to all new viewers. Thank you all for coming in. Please click that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of this year. So, everyone helping out, I greatly thank you for that. And yeah, thanks to everyone who has gotten me to 75 subscribers so far. Greatly appreciated. Sorry, y'all. I'm just getting my game snack. Some chocolate covered raisins, which are pretty good. Alright. We're ready, chat. We're ready. We're ready. Yeah, I mean, I think Easton Cowan could really make good, how do I say it? Like, I think Cowan could make like a good impact on this Toronto team. I think that, yeah, Cowan, Robertson, maybe Hildeby could really make a good impact on this team as Toronto gets the puck out of their zone. And here comes two of the Leafs penalty killers. Tried to center, but couldn't get there. And Detroit gets it in their own zone. And here comes Detroit through center. Here comes Detroit. Mishandled the pass as Toronto nearly gets it to the blue line, but not out. And here's a lot in front of the net. Hildeby got, I believe, a save there, and Toronto gets it out the center. Here comes Detroit. And Toronto got that out the center. Scrum along the boards that Toronto won, and here's a lead pass and a shot. He scores! Short-handed! Nick Robertson, short-handed, makes it 2-1. It was a slap shot, too. What a goal for Nick Robertson. Alright, Gibson's in net for Detroit. No goalie change. Here's Detroit after the shorthanded goal by Nick Robertson. Couldn't get it out was Toronto, and Detroit gets it into Toronto's zone. Here's Detroit at the goal line, at the blue line now. The shot blocked in front. Here's a pass over And another shot blocked, and Leafs tried to clear it, but couldn't. And Detroit sends it out of the zone. Here's Detroit at center, sends it into Toronto's zone. Here's Detroit in their own zone. Sends it into Toronto's zone. Power play is over for Detroit. And a wraparound attempt saved by Dennis Hildeby. Less than a minute to go. And puck is sent into the netting. What a start to this game so far. Toronto's up 2-1. After Nicholas Robertson got a goal shorthanded. Here's a face-off win by Toronto. Sends it into Detroit's end. Detroit comes from behind their net. Sends it all the way down the ice. And icing is not called there. And the Leafs try and get it out to center ice. Hildeby plays the puck as it's hit behind the net. And here comes Toronto through center for one last first period push to try and get another goal. And that'll be the end of the first period unless the shot couldn't get past Hildeby. What a period of play in Detroit. What a game so far. As we'll go to first intermission. I personally think that Easton Cowan and Nicholas Robertson really have potential to make this year's team. I feel like, they forecheck and backcheck hard. They play good defense. And even though Nicholas Robertson couldn't really get on the board last year and on the score sheet, I think he did his best last year. And then of course, I think Matthews, without his partner in crime, Mitch Marner, might have a little bit of dip in production, but I think that's to be expected with the Craig Berube system. So, hopefully Toronto can make it past the first round this year, not choke like they usually do in the playoffs. So, hopefully Toronto can actually get to the Stanley Cup final for the first time since 1967, back in the mid-Triassic period for me. And yeah, and we'll see how Florida does. Or, I mean, I'm not much of a Florida fan for their success over the past 3 years, since they knocked out Toronto in the playoffs the last 2 years, which is sad. And I don't like, because I'm sad. I'm a sad Leafs fan. Yeah. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say, chat. Yeah, I mean, hopefully Toronto can actually do well this postseason, assuming they make the postseason. And yeah, maybe we could get that dream matchup of Matthews versus McDavid in the Cup final. Toronto versus Edmonton. But yeah, I'm going for my Maple Leafs all the way through, because they're my favorite team. And I wish the best to all 32 teams. And yeah, hopefully we'll see about Buffalo. We have to keep an eye on Buffalo, chat. We have to keep an eye out for them. Yeah, hopefully they can get out of their playoff slump. And then, yeah, Detroit too. We gotta keep an eye on Detroit, see how they do this season. And yeah, I hope Detroit can get into the playoffs too. And I kind of want a Toronto versus Detroit Eastern Conference final. I think that would be cool. And I think that'd be fun. And we'll just have to see. We'll have to see, chat. It's starting to get a little facial hair here. Might not be able to see it, but yeah, I don't think y'all can see my facial hair. Probably, I'd probably have to zoom in, and I don't want to zoom in. Yeah, but I'm going some facial hair that I'll shave off tomorrow. So, Chad, what do you think if I grew out like a massive beard over the summer? As massive as I could get it. Do you think I could get a massive beard? Or a good beard going? I want a beard, so. Yeah, I think that would be good. I bet I could get it, like, right here. Not, like, super massive, but at least a little bushy. I bet I could get bushy little beard. Not massive, but good enough. And I think hopefully, Toronto can do some great things. And hopefully, Connor McDavid can get a place to sign. So maybe he'll find a place that makes him feel happy. Whether that's in Edmonton or whether it's in Toronto. I just hope that McDavid finds the place that's right for him. So I'm just trying to get some stats. All right. Here. Toronto has 11 shots on goal so far, and Detroit has 7 shots on goal. Their goal scorers for Toronto is Nicholas Robertson, shorthanded, assisted by Yarncrook and Philippe Myers. Logan Shaw tied it, sorry. Assisted from Barlini and Thrun. And then I'm scared to say this last name, chat. this seems like a very hard last name, so I'm not gonna say it because I'm afraid of messing up. And I got a 26-minute and 5-second 5K time, which isn't too bad, but I haven't run a 5K in like a long time, chat, so don't expect me to be fast. Yeah. 26 minutes isn't too bad, chat. So, yeah, I mean, I'm still thinking on growing my beard out just to make it bushy-ish. So, yeah, we'll have to see what I can do over the summer. And yeah, and Detroit is down 2-1. And yeah, I'm just hoping for a great game because I'm also kind of a fan of Detroit. And yeah, I respected the Detroit Red Wings despite them being in the same division in the Atlantic Division. So I respect Detroit, even though they're in our division. I respect them. Atlantic Division. So I respect Detroit, even though they're in our division. Who will win? Yeah, let's go with that question, chat. Who will win between Detroit and Toronto? And again, I'm hoping just for a good game, but I hope Toronto can pull it out. So, go Leafs, go. And Toronto is again leading in shots, 11-7. So yeah, just hope for the best for both teams. And let's go. And they're coming back. Hold on, Chad. I'm getting something to drink. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. What'd I miss? Nothing yet. And Toronto wins the face-off here. And they send it into Detroit territory. And Detroit tries to clear, but can't. Toronto sends it back down. Toronto sends it behind Detroit's net. And Detroit clears, and Toronto's gonna beat icing. Here comes Benoit with a pass. Couldn't connect. And Detroit sends it in. And here's Detroit at the blue line with a shot wide. And in the corner. Sends it back up to the blue line. Kane passes off. The shot is blocked. And another shot saved by Hildeby. Puck now behind the net as Benoit gets it out, or Benoit passes to clear it out. Here comes Detroit. And a shot saved by Hildeby. Here's Detroit in their own zone. Here comes Detroit with a shot saved by Hildeby. What a game so far. Ooh. Yeah, I think before this on Detroit's shot before this, Hildeby literally made like a toe save. That was close to going in. Here's a face-off won by Detroit. A shot saved by Hildeby. Toronto now trying to get it out. Can't. Detroit now at blue line. Shot. Sent wide. Here's Detroit again at the blue line. Back at the blue line, and looks like a trip, but refs didn't call it. Here comes Detroit. Or Toronto, sorry. Long shot went wide. And here comes Detroit the opposite way. Pass blocked. Here comes Toronto coming through center, sending it in. Here's Detroit now. Couldn't get it out of the zone, and shots fire at the net. Couldn't quite get in the back of the net. Here's Toronto in their own zone. Detroit sends it back. Toronto behind their own net. Sending it all the way down the ice. didn't get icing, and Toronto tried to get it behind the net. And Detroit gets it out to center before Toronto sends it back in. Detroit sends it into Toronto's zone, but Toronto gets it, and then Detroit gets it back, and now Toronto behind their net, trying to clear. Here's Detroit. Here's Detroit at the blue line. Passing it in front and shot. Blocked into the corner. Here's Raymond. Here's Raymond with a shot. Went wide. Here's Detroit again. Detroit's doing a good job here of keeping it in. And a shot. Saved. What a save. Here's Detroit again. Here's Detroit again. Kane with a shot. Sent wide. Here comes Detroit at their line again. Kane, he scores! Patty Kane! Patty Kane! Wow. Wow. Kane, he scores! Patty Kane! Patty Kane! Hold on. Sorry. There we go. Hold on. Sorry. There we go. Hold up. There we go. Here's Toronto sending it down the ice. Here comes Detroit in Toronto's zone with a shot blocked, saved by Hildeby. Scrum behind the net here. Looks like a cross check there. And Toronto wins the face-off and gets it to center ice. Here comes Detroit, sending it in. Behind the net now. And Toronto sends it down the ice. Or Detroit, I think. Detroit now in their own zone. Coming through center into Toronto zone. Toronto tries to get it out, but Detroit keeps it in. Here comes Toronto, taken by Detroit. Detroit sends it in. Penalty coming to Detroit. Looks like a fair check, but refs didn't see it that way. Patrick Kane makes it 2-2. As we are in the second period. And yeah, this should be a good game for both teams. So yeah, hopefully both Toronto and Detroit can get into the second round, or more like the Eastern Conference Final, but hopefully Detroit and Buffalo can both get into the playoffs. And yeah, I mean, hopefully Toronto doesn't choke. Probably famous last words. And yeah, hopefully, yeah. Here's Toronto after the one face-off. Cowan down low. Tried to make a good pass, but couldn't. Here's another shot. Saved. Yeah, I don't know if y'all saw, but there's a big fight in the Tampa Bay, Florida game. Or many big fights in the Tampa Bay, Florida game. And I believe there will be 5-on-3 here, as the puck was flipped over the glass. And that's the case. 5-on-3. Five on three. If you're Detroit, you do not want to do that. Just gotta stick in the Iser plan, right? Here's the face-off won by Toronto. And the shot missed. Here's Toronto now, 5-on-3. Another shot. Deflected out of play. And Robertson is an assistant captain this game. Yeah, hopefully Robertson can find his place in the lineup this season. Face off won by Toronto. Scrum along the board for the puck. A ref fell down. And Detroit is trying to clear it, but can't. Here's Toronto. Here's Detroit with a shot. Saved. Robertson. Here's a pass in front, and Detroit clears. And Hildeby comes out to play it. Here's the stretch pass. Robertson touches it. And here's Robertson now against the wall. And here's Toronto now. Robertson. Cowan. Back to Robertson. Shot saved, and Detroit clears it. And another penalty. Jeez. Another delay of game penalty. That was... I think he was trying to clear down the ice. But that's delay a game. Not part of the Iserman plan. Oh gosh, Detroit. What hole have you dig yourselves? What hole have you digged yourselves? This isn't good. Detroit playing. I bet Detroit fans are like, this is how the lead dies. This is how the lead dies. Face off won by Toronto. Cowan nearly slipped there. Here's Cowan. The shot blocked. Recovered by Cowan. Vinny passes to Cowan. Here's Vinny Cowan again. Shot. That deflected after the shot. And yeah, whistle gets it done. Detroit fans are like, this is how the league dies. I bet. And the refs are trying to fix the game clock, I think. I know what's going on, Chad. I don't know. I know. But here's the face-off won by Cowan. Here's a shot. And that goes out of play. And I bet Robertson will be in the lineup for Toronto. Yeah. Here's a face-off won by Toronto, and a shot is saved. And here's Toronto at center after Detroit clears it, and a missed pass, and Detroit clears it. And Toronto's on the power play. Cowan now sends it down low. And here's Detroit taken away by Toronto. And here's Toronto now after passing sequence. Here's Terry. And here's the shot. That goes all the way down the ice, and Hildeby elects to play it, sends it behind his net. And here comes Toronto. And here's look and shoot. Nylander. Alex Nylander, not William. Missed the pass. And Toronto gets it back, but it's quickly taken away by Detroit. Here's Detroit now. And here is a shot sent wide. And then I don't know what's going on here. Maybe a hooking penalty? I think that might be the call here, but didn't seem like a penalty. I know. Yeah, I think this should be good. So, yeah. I bet Easton Cowan will be in the lineup too. Hope he is. And then yeah, hopefully things go to plan. So yeah. And Toronto putting James Reimer into goal. Detroit wins that face-off. Through center. And here's a shot saved by Reimer. And the shot goes wide. And Toronto gets it out. And that'll go all the way down the ice. No icing called. Here comes Toronto sending it into their zone. Here comes Detroit with a shot saved by James Reimer. And then a fight might be going on, but some pushing and shoving, it looks like now. Someone's got a helmet off, and then shoving starts again. Oh, jeez. Things are getting ugly. A late hit, kind of. Penny! Sam Benoit, kind of a late hit. Oh gosh. Then getting into the mix with Dylan Larkin. Who didn't like that. Oh gosh. Face off here at center. Or not at center. Near center. And Detroit wins that and sends it into Toronto's zone. And Detroit near the blue line, and a shot sent wide. Here's Detroit behind the net for a centering pass. Another centering pass tried, but covered up by Reimer. And some more cross checks after the whistle. And and hopefully things are better without Marner. And I think a hand pass is called here. And yeah, hopefully Craig can get it done behind the bench. And yeah, hopefully things are better. Well, I know things won't be as good without Marner, but and Detroit fluked up a pass, and Toronto at center. Sorry. And here's Detroit in their own zone. And Detroit sends it in. Here's Detroit at the line with a shot. Reimer's down. He didn't know where the puck was. And here's Detroit with a shot. And another shot saved by Reimer. Here comes Detroit sending it in. What a sequence. Now to Toronto behind their net. Sending it out the center into Detroit's zone. Here comes Detroit now. Here's a shot saved by Reimer. 90.7 miles an hour. And here's Toronto with a chance, and they couldn't put it away. And here's Detroit. Sending it into Toronto zone. And Toronto now sending it down the ice after a hit. Here's Detroit sending it in. Pass is blocked, but here's Toronto again, coming through center, sending it in. Scrum along the board, and Detroit flings it around. Toronto flings it around the opposite way. And here's Detroit now. And here's Detroit. Toronto now behind the net. Coming out the center. Larkin now coming through center. Sending it in. Send it just wide the net. And Toronto tried to get that. And here comes Detroit with the shot, and that goes up into the netting. What a sequence that was. And less than 5 minutes left to go in the period. We are tied at 2s. Thank you all for joining in. Hope everyone's having a great night so far, or great day if you're on the opposite side of the world. And yeah, hopefully Toronto can, hopefully Toronto can also win the Stanley Cup. I have a feeling that this is the year. Hear me out, chat. Hear me out. Even though they got rid of Mitch Marner, which I know kind of sounds ridiculous. Like, why would you get rid of possibly one of the greatest wingers in the league? You still got Austin Matthews. You still got William Nylander. You still got John Tavares. You have arguably one of the greatest goalies in Anthony Stolarz. And last year you couldn't get past the second round. How can you do better this year than you can last year? We'll talk about that later as Detroit wins that face-off. Here's Detroit sending it back up to the blue line. And shot is blocked. Here comes Toronto. Breakaway scores! There we go! There we go, chat. That was insane. It's like, you gotta score on those breakaways. I think it was, you got one of the Leafs prospects there. Glove side. And Detroit wins the draw. Here's Toronto now. Now scrum along the board for the puck, and Detroit gets it. Here comes Detroit behind the net. Sider, shot. He made the save, and here comes Toronto. Nylander shot. He scores! Wow! 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 Alex Nylander. Wow. That was like so close together. Wow. Detroit now. Bobbled the puck at center. Sent it down. Here comes Detroit through center. 2.5 minutes left to go. And icing is the call. Well, Detroit is 2 down after Alex Nylander absolutely snipes it past the goaltender. Here comes Detroit again with a shot. Sent wide. Here's Detroit again. Passed into the corner. Centering pass. Couldn't get a stick on it. Here's Detroit at the top of the zone. Here's Kane. And then passes it off. Here's Toronto, who clears it. Icing is the call. What a sequence. That seems like it was like a minute-ish apart. No, that was like 53 seconds apart, chat. 53 seconds! Anyways, here comes the face-off in Toronto's zone, which Toronto wins. And clears. Here comes Toronto. Or Detroit, sorry. Tried to do a little toe drag. Couldn't get that. And the save by James Reimer. And a scrum in the front of the net. I have a feeling there's going to be a fight in the third period. I think this is going to boil over. Yeah, this might be foreshadowing. I don't know. I'm not from the future, chat. Well, there's a little lag in what I'm saying now and what I'll be saying in the future, but who knows? Well, what a game. Here comes the face-off in Toronto's zone. And Toronto tries to clear it. And Toronto sends it in. And here is Detroit after they won the puck battle. Here's Detroit trying to get the puck, but Toronto got it back, and then Reimer got the puck covered up. I have a feeling tensions will boil over here in the third period. I don't know what y'all think, chat? Think that it might boil over. 1 minute left in the period. Here's a shot. Blocked. Here's a shot. Sent wide and out of the zone. As it goes all the way down with 30 seconds remaining. Here's Detroit. Shot. Blocked. And Toronto sends it down. And that'll be icing. With 20.4 seconds left to go in period number 2. Toronto leads 4-2. After Alex Nylander absolutely snipes it past the Detroit goalie. And Nicholas Robertson did get a shorthanded goal as Toronto wins the face-off, 10 seconds left in the period. And it'll be up against the boards until the period ends. And that's how we end the period. Good period. Good period, chat. Alex Nylander on the breakaway. Or wait, no. I think that was... Wait. Yeah, Alex Nylander scored the last goal for Toronto, chat. I know why I was confused. I know. But here we go. Second intermission. And Leafs are up 4-2. And yeah, hopefully Mitch Marner does well down in Vegas. Yeah, as I was saying before the 2-minute mark, Toronto has some key players in their lineup. They got Tanev, Riley, OEL, Matthews, not Marner anymore. They got Matthews, Nylander, and possibly Robertson. Yeah, they got Matthews, hopefully Robertson, Will Nye the Science Guy, Stolars. They got some key players in their lineup, but they can't seem to get past the second round. They gotta fix this somehow, chat. They gotta fix this somehow. It's like by April, early May, like it seems like they've given up. Seems like they want to go to the golf course or something. Take their summer off. But what I am thinking, if you want that Stanley Cup ring, if you want to get a chance to hold that Stanley Cup, if you want that day with the cup, you gotta play your hardest all the way from day one of the season. That's just my thought. Gotta play consistent hockey all the way through the season and the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, if you're injured, take all the time you need to get healed and try and get back like 100%. I get if you're injured, but the person who steps in for that injured person should try to maybe like not like kind of fill their role. That's kind of their point, to fill their role, but try to play it to their ability. And maybe if they're better than the person that got injured, maybe, yeah, put them higher in the lineup. That's just my speculation. That's my speculation on how Toronto should do things. Yeah, I mean, Toronto does a fantastic job of this in the regular season. But when it comes to playoff time, all the momentum they have built during that season falls away in the playoffs. I get it, they went to the second round this past year, but they lost to the Florida Panthers. Really bad in Game 7. Is it this kind of Game 7 curse? It might be. It might be. Or it might be some players, but I don't know who. I'm not going to point fingers. But I don't think players have really stepped up during Game 7 to really try and get out to a great lead and then hold that lead until the final buzzer sounds. That's my seeing of things as a Leafs fan. That's my personal opinion. I'm happy to listen to any of your opinions if you all have any. But yeah, Toronto has not done a great job when it comes to playoff time in April, early May. So that's kind of my spiel on the Leafs. Unless I somehow have something else to go on a rant about other than referees. Because if you know me, I kind of have a reputation for blaming the refs for basically everything. Yeah, kind of like when the Jacksonville Jaguars played the Cincinnati Bengals in football. I blamed the refs after the loss. And yeah, if you just know me, just know that sometimes I might blame the refs more than I should. And if you, the YouTube community, want me to do some other cool videos or stream something else that's cool, and open to having your suggestions, but mainly for the rest of the fall and winter, I'm gonna be doing hockey streams, and that maps out the rest of my year on YouTube. Well, not that I'm retiring from YouTube. I'm not doing that yet. It's too early, I feel like. But that's just the rest of the calendar year planned out. Doing more streams like this one throughout the rest of the year, every Saturday. So feel free to stop by next week. I'll be here. This time I think I'll actually be on time. So, not doing any races next week. Not doing any 5Ks. I'll be here right on time at 7. So, it's been a good game so far between Toronto and Detroit. I'll pull up more stats. Now the Detroit Red Wings are out shooting the Maple Leafs 20-17. But Toronto is leading them on the scoreboard by a score of 4-2. Franzek got the goal to open scoring for Detroit. And then Logan Shaw for Toronto tied it at 1. And then Nicholas Robertson with a short-handed goal, assisted by Yarncroke and Myers, makes it 2-1. And then Patrick Kane for Detroit ties it up at 2. And then Pezzetta, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Pezzetta? I don't know. I might say a few of these names wrong, so sorry about that. Made it 3-2 for Toronto, and then Alex Nylander on the power play. Or wait, no, not on the power play. Alex Nylander, I believe, on the breakaway, makes it 4-2. So, yeah. Just trying to pull up the highlight here. Oh yeah, that is... Or wait, no. I mean, it's kind of on a breakaway. Yeah, I think it was Pezzetta on the breakaway for Toronto. Yeah, I think it's Pezzetta. Or Pezzetta. I don't know how to say his name. Oh yeah, it's Pizzetta that was on the breakaway. Yeah, it was Pizzetta. And yeah, we're coming up back on the third period. And yeah, I think we're getting close here. Yeah, I think. I know. I think I'm just repeating what I say. And no. Should be coming back here soon, is what I'm thinking. I don't know what to do. I guess more stats. Not just the boys, guys. Just think they're interesting. Yeah, I think we should be coming back here soon. It says here on the app that it's less than a minute. So, I mean, Detroit has 10 penalty minutes so far. And both teams have a 0% power play percentage tonight. Toronto's 0 for 5 and Detroit's 0 for 1. Gotta get that power play rolling. Toronto leads in blocked shots with 22, and Detroit has 11. So that's good. And like I said earlier, Detroit has 20 shots on goal. Toronto has 17. Should be coming back any moment. And they're showing some old highlights from the old Detroit Red Wings because this year's their 100th anniversary. And yeah, I think the original six has quite a unique history. And we're coming back here. And here comes the face-off at center ice as we're getting back into the game. Face-off won by Toronto. Here comes Toronto. Sent back out to center. And Toronto sends it around the boards. Here's a takeaway. The shot saved. And here's Detroit coming from their own zone. Coming through center now. Sending it around the boards. Now Toronto. Cross-ice pass into Detroit territory. Here comes Detroit, got it out to center ice. Here comes Cowan. DeBrincat takes it away. Here comes Detroit. Now Detroit sends it behind Toronto's zone, or Toronto's net, sorry. Here's Detroit now at the blue line. And it is saved. And some extracurricular activities going on in front of Toronto's net. And the Leafs are looking good so far. So, here's the face-off one. And that shot went wide. Here comes Toronto through center. Here's a pass! Saved! Detroit takes it now as they slowly are coming through center. Sending it into Toronto zone. Here comes Toronto. Here's a shot. Saved. Gibson made that save. What a game. And I have a good feeling for this Toronto team going into this season. For all the people they brought in. Here's the face-off. Ref wants to redo that. Face-off won by Toronto. Detroit. Here comes Detroit. Tried to get a shot, but I think a tripping penalty will come to Toronto. Yeah, that wasn't good. Ref, what are you doing? Come on. Just let the face-off go! Alright, here we go for the actual face-off. Toronto wins that. Here's a breakout pass. Sends it around the boards. Kane to DeBrincat. Back to Kane. Back to DeBrincat. To Larkin. Here's Sider. Blocked pass. But here's Larkin now. To Raymond. To Kane. Shot. DeBrincat brings it back to Kane. To Sider. To Raymond. To Larkin with a shot. And that goes wide. And here's DeBrincat. Shot. And that hits the net. Here's Raymond. He passes it over to Kane. Kane to Sider to Raymond. And Larkin got the shot off, but that went wide. And here comes Toronto now. Sends it towards the net. Here comes DeBrincat. Or wait, no, Compter, sorry. Jeez, these guys some of these guys have long names, sorry. Casper now. And not the shot was another guy. His name was long. And Toronto clears the puck. Here comes Detroit. And Detroit couldn't get anything done on the power play. And here's another shot, and that goes out of play. And some great saves made by Reimer, former right wing. Here's the face-off. Broken stick, I think. Toronto gets it out. Here's Detroit. Here comes Detroit sending it into the corner. Toronto gets it back. Here's Toronto now. Cowan missed the puck. Here comes Toronto now in their own zone. Stretch pass. Sending it deep into Detroit territory. Here comes Detroit. Detroit now. And here's now Toronto behind the net trying to clear it, but Detroit sends it back in. Now Toronto with it again, sending it into Detroit zone. Now Detroit. Detroit now in their own zone. And center now. Sending it into Toronto's zone. Toronto now. Sending it into Detroit's zone. And Detroit throws it around the net. Here's Detroit now. And Here comes Detroit. Brinke with a shot. Saved by Reimer. Here's another shot. Went wide. Here's Toronto now with the puck coming through center. Around 3, but Toronto flips it in. Here comes Detroit now. Toronto now behind the net. Tries to get it out the center, but Detroit sends it back to Reimer. He saves it. Here's Detroit now. Detroit with a shot, I'm sorry. What is going on to my brain? I think it's Saturday-itis. Saturday-itis, chat. My brain is foggy. Oh gosh. Now I'm kind of getting tired. I know why. It's only 9:20 around where I am. 9:20 p.m. Anyways, it's 4-2 Toronto. Nicholas Robertson had a shorthanded goal in the first period, and then Detroit tied it, and then it was all Toronto since, getting 2 more. Hopefully Toronto can actually hang on to this lead, unlike I believe it's Friday, or not yesterday, but it was Thursday that Toronto lost to Detroit. So, yeah, here's Detroit with a shot. Blocked. Here comes another shot sent wide. Detroit now behind the net. Toronto gets the puck back. Toronto now with a 2-on-1. Here comes Toronto. Gibson made the save. Here comes Detroit. Couldn't get the pass across. Here comes Toronto now. Sends it in. Here is Toronto in the zone, and Detroit sends it into Toronto's zone. Toronto with a stretch pass and a shot saved by Gibson. Here comes Detroit through center, sending it into Toronto's zone. Now the Leafs. And Detroit mishandles pass at center, and Toronto sends it in. And here's Toronto with a shot, saved by, or I guess sailed wide, and passed down low. And here's Detroit trying to get handle on the puck. Here's Raymond passing it. Shot. Saved. And scrum. I predicted last period there would be a fight. We'll see if that holds true. We'll have to see. We'll have to see, chat. We'll see if that holds true. Yeah, I think that top line will be. Oh, I'll give some context here. Here, I think that. Here's what I think the lines will be. That's what I was trying to say. Here's what I think the lines will be. First line, we got Matthews, Tavares, Nylander as the forwards. And then on defense, I think we got McCabe and Tanev, because that worked well last year. On the second line, let's start on defense this time. I think on defense, we got Riley and Ekman-Larsson. Not that I think Riley couldn't be a top liner, because I think he could be a top liner, but I think since that Tanev and McCabe have done so well together, I think they could be good for the top line. And then Riley and OEL on the second line. For forwards, I think we got Willie Robertson, and guess we'll have to get back to this later as Detroit sends it in. And now Toronto tried to get it out, but Reimer covers it up. Yeah, I think Bill Nylander will be on the second line. With Domi and Robertson. I think Domi would be a good fit. And then now Detroit won the face-off. A pass in front, sent wide. Here's Toronto now coming out of their zone. And puck goes out of play. I think it might be fun to be an NHL coach, but I think it might be torture as well. But I think it'd be fun. Here comes Toronto, or Detroit. They just took it out of their zone. Here's Toronto sending it into Detroit's zone. Here comes Detroit. Putting it into Leafs territory, but Leafs took it away. Here's Detroit sending it behind Toronto's net. Tried to center. Reimer made the save. Here comes Detroit on net. Here comes Detroit. battle against the board for the puck and penalty? What penalty? On Easton Cowan? Holding? I guess there's a hold. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Face off one by Toronto, but Detroit gets it. Here is Detroit with a passing game. DeBrincat in front of the net with DeBrincat. Couldn't get a shot off, and I think Toronto might get another penalty here, but DeBrincat looked like he got cross-checked. Yeah, Myers just cross-checked him, and then he went into the stick of Reimer. Yeah. DeBrincat got cross-checked into the butt of the stick of Reimer, and DeBrincat looks to be bleeding just a tiny bit. Hopefully he's okay. No additional penalties. Here's Detroit after the one face-off. Toronto getting it out. Tried to clear, but couldn't. Detroit keeps it in. Shot. Scores! It's 4-3. And that was a good one-timer. One goal game here. Dangerous territory. As Toronto gets it in. They score! Wow! They got it back almost instantly. Wow. That was like right after the face-off. Now it's a 2-goal game once again. Like right after I look back up here, it's like bang, another goal. And the crowd has gone like silent as the puck goes all the way down the ice. No icing. And another shot. That went wide. Offsides is call. That was quick. Oh, that went off the post. They're showing a replay of that shot by Shabbat. That was close going in, guys. That was close. Detroit wins the face-off and sends it in. Now Toronto behind the net. Scrum along the boards for the puck. Toronto sends it out. Here comes Toronto, sending it in another shot. That got blocked by stick. Here's Detroit sending it in. Stopped by Reimer. Now Toronto behind the net. Killing some time. Here comes Toronto sending it down. Here's the pass in front. And that is saved. Well, that was insane. Goals pretty much back to back. Like 15 seconds apart, guys. 15 seconds apart. That's how far apart the goals were. Pretty much back to back. Wild. That was wild. It's like Detroit was like, but, and then Toronto's like, no. Yeah, I guess like Toronto was like, but no. So, kind of what went on there. And yeah, this has been a great preseason game so far. Yeah, if you were surprised on that back-to-back goal, that was insane. That was wild. Here's Detroit after the one face-off. Sending it in, but Toronto gets it back quickly and now sends it into Detroit's zone. And icing's the call. Nearly 5 minutes left to go in the third period. Toronto leads 5-3. Hold on, I gotta update this thing. Right. Here's Detroit after the one face-off. Sending it behind the net. But here comes Toronto now. Sending it in. Not for icing though, but Detroit gets it. Here's Detroit with an outlet pass. Here's the centering pass, and that nearly beat Reimer, but he made the save. And Toronto sends it in. Here's Toronto in front. And then a late shot, and then think we might get a fight here. And of course, Benny's in there. That a late poke after the whistle caused some extracurricular activities. And then chaos came from there. And apparently a penalty will be coming of this. For Toronto. No bueno. Here's the face-off one. Here's Detroit at the blue line. Raymond. Here's a shot. Whistles wide. Here's another chance. Here's a shot. Couldn't get it. Just under 4 minutes left to go. Raymond passes up. Here's a pass in front. And that was probably the save of the game right there. 3.5 left to go. The shot saved by Reimer, and Toronto clears. Here's Detroit with a stretch pass as they send it in. And there will be a cross-checking penalty against Toronto. Yeah, that's a definition of a cross-check. Benny getting the penalty. Bennett, you can't be doing that, bud. You can't be doing that. Or Benoit, sorry. Bennett's in Florida. And, Detroit's pulling their goalie. So I believe it'll be a 6-on-3. Surely they're scoring here. This is how they score. Here's the center pass across. And couldn't get a shot off. Here's Raymond. Here's the shot. Saved by Reimer. And here's Detroit along the boards. And shot, they score. I told y'all, this is how they score. This is how they score. We'll see if Toronto can fire back in 15 seconds. Detroit's net still empty. It's a 1-goal game again here. Never mind, they put them back, and here they go. Empty net again, 6-on-4. This is how they score. And Toronto couldn't get it out. Nearly 2 minutes left to go here. Tried to center it. And 2 minutes left to go. Here's Larkin looking to shoot. Didn't take the shot. Here's a shot. Blocked. And that goes into the netting. 1 shot game, guys. 1 shot. For either team. Either ties or seals this game. Yeah, hopefully Toronto can pull it out and get their revenge for Thursday after going up 1-0 and then they couldn't hold on. I think a timeout is being taken by Detroit. And you gotta wonder what's going on for Detroit. And you gotta be wondering what Toronto is thinking. And Toronto clears it all the way down. Here comes Detroit from their own zone. Here's Kane. Fanned on a pass. Here's Schreider. Passed. Kane, Schreider. Shot. And that was nearly put in the back of the net. And the power play's nearly up. But DeBrincat couldn't put it in the back of the net. And Benoit comes back on the ice as the penalty expires. 6-on-5 with a minute to go. And here's Detroit with a shot. Poking at it. And Toronto, clears it away. And then another shot goes into the glove of the goalie, James Reimer. Great chances for Detroit to try and tie this game, but they haven't found the back of the net. Toronto gets it around the net. They clear it out down the ice, and that is icing. And we will get a face-off in Toronto's zone. This has been a crazy third period. And Detroit wins the face-off. Shot. They score! Darn it. Choked! How do you explain that? They choked. They were literally up 2. choked. Gave up 2. I'm not happy. Here comes Toronto shot! Blocked. Yeah, nearly thought they were gonna get there. Here's Detroit now. 3, 2, 1. Oh, and they nearly got another one. And we will go to overtime. Well, the game's not over yet. Well, I'm not proud, Chad. I'm not happy. Leafs can't handle leads. They were up 5-3. They were up 5-3. Whatever it was. And then Detroit literally scored twice. How do you explain that? Well, it's the leafiest thing to do. I agree. It's the leafiest thing to do. It's in their blood. Well, not literally in their blood, but Toronto has a tendency to choke. Remember back in Boston and when they blew that, I think in 2013. They literally blew a 4-1 lead to Boston. And then, I think, they just dunk it up. There's the time, and here comes overtime. Detroit gets that face-off win. Here comes Detroit. Here's the toe drag. Oh, what a save! Another shot, another save. Here's Raymond behind the net. Here's Detroit again. Here comes Detroit. Here's tried to get a shot off, but he couldn't. Here comes Detroit. Here's Detroit with a shot. Saved. Nearly went in. Yeah, Kane with a good shot, but right off the chin of Reimer, and he quickly goes down to cover that up. Detroit wins that. And Detroit going into their own zone. Here comes Detroit. Kane now. That was a high sticking penalty. Here comes Detroit. Oh, broken stick on the one-timer. Here comes Detroit. Another shot. Saved. And then they're going to call this penalty. How do you choke this badly, Leafs? How? This is craziness, chat. Detroit's had all the possession. Detroit has had all the possession. Leafs clear it. And Gibson out to play it. Raymond now. Here comes Detroit now. And Detroit now. Shot. Saved. Raymond again. DeBrincat sends it back. Kane tried for DeBrincat. Couldn't get through. Kane. Shot sent wide. Here's Kane again. Kane. He walks in! And he couldn't get it in the back of the net. Here's Kane. Larkin. Kane. Larkin. Shot. Hit the side of the net. Kane. Here's a shot. I hate my life! Come on! Cue the music, editor. Cue the music! I'm not happy. How do you choke a 2-goal lead? Apparently the answer is, if you are the Leafs. Apparently the answer is, if you are the Leafs. They did it in the leafiest way possible. I get it, it's only in a preseason game, but now I'm concerned. I know what I would do if Berube. Yeah, I know what Berube's thinking about. Well, there's always next game, guys. Always next game, next week. Well, hopefully Leafs can have it figured out by next week when I stream again.